Welcome back to the deep dive. So I want to start today with a little inventory check. If you just look at your social media feed right now, or maybe the bestseller list on Amazon, what do you see?
Oh, it's an endless scroll.
It's an endless, frantic parade of health obsessions. It's superfoods, kale, turmeric, whatever the berry of the month is.
Right, and gym hacks.
Gym hacks, plunging into ice baths at 4 in the morning because a podcast told you to.
Yeah.
It's biohacking your sleep, taking 40 different miracle supplements. We're obsessed with finding that one secret ingredient for a long life.
It's a massive industry. We're always hunting for the external fix, We want the pill, the gadget, the specific routine that's going to buy us more time.
We treat the body like a machine that just needs the right additive.
Exactly.
Exactly. But here's the hook for today. And honestly, it kind of blew my mind when I went through the research for this deep dive. The data, and we're talking massive data sets here, it's telling us that none of those things is the most powerful predictor of how long you'll live. Not the kale, not the gym, not the ice bath.
Not even close. In fact, compared to what we're discussing today, those factors are statistically secondary.
The real secret, the thing that actually determines if you make it to a healthy old age, well, it's something totally different. You don't find it in a pharmacy. You find it in a classroom.
What?
It's education.
It is education. And I know how that lands. It sounds like a boring public service announcement, maybe a lecture from a guidance counselor.
Right.
But when you really dig into the source material we have today, especially the World Health Organization data and Michael Marmot's landmark book, Status Syndrome, we are not talking about getting straight A's. We're talking about a fundamental biological restructuring of the human body.
And that's the mission for today.
Yeah.
We need to unpack how sitting in a classroom or just the act of learning somehow translates into living longer. Because I have to be honest, my first reaction is just total skepticism.
Of course.
I look at this and I think, okay, sure, people with degrees live longer, but isn't that just a proxy for money?
That is the assumption everyone makes. It's the first place your mind goes.
I mean, let's be real. If I have a PhD, I probably have a high-paying job. And if I have that, I can buy the organic blueberries, I can afford the best health insurance, I can hire a personal trainer. So isn't this whole thing just a graph of rich people live longer disguised as an education graph?
You would think so. And look, money obviously plays a role. You can't ignore material needs. But the research shows it is so much more complex and, frankly, way more fascinating than that.
How so?
Well, if it were just about money, you'd expect lottery winners to suddenly see their life expectancy jump to match, say, neurosurgeons. But they don't. It's not just about the resources you can buy. It's about what Marmot calls the quiet architecture of your life. It's about how learning changes your brain, how you process the world, and specifically how you handle stress at a cellular level.
Okay, quiet architecture. I want to unpack that. But before we get to the biology, let's just establish the stakes. We aren't talking about a few months of extra life, right?
Oh, no.
The numbers in that WHO report were pretty jarring.
They're staggering. I mean, when the World Health Organization analyzed these huge global data sets, they found this consistent pattern that holds up across different cultures, different economies. They found that each additional year of education reduces the risk of early death by nearly 2%.
2% per year. So just a 4-year degree is roughly an 8% reduction in mortality risk just by showing up.
Roughly, yes. But it gets even more dramatic when you look at some of the U.S. studies in our stack. They found that college graduates live, on average, 6 to 11 years longer than people with only a high school diploma.
Whoa, pause there for a second. 6 to 11 years.
11 years.
That is an entire decade of life.
That's
seeing your grandkids graduate. It's a whole other chapter of your existence.
It's a massive gap. It's actually larger than the life expectancy gap between smokers and non-smokers in some of these data sets.
That's insane.
And if you go even further up the ladder to what the research calls the PhD advantage, so people with doctoral degrees, MDs, they have the lowest mortality rates of all.
I'm still stuck on the why. I hear that stat, and my brain still screams wealth.
I get it.
But you mentioned Michael Marmot and Status Syndrome. His work suggests that even if you control for income, so you've got two people making the same money, the more educated one still tends to be healthier. How is that possible?
It comes down to where you sit on the social gradient and, crucially, how much control you have over your own life. Marmot's central idea is that health is largely determined by autonomy.
Autonomy.
And education is the main tool that sorts people into jobs and lives where they have high autonomy.
Explain that. Autonomy sounds like a philosophy term, not a medical one.
Okay, think about the invisible advantages that come with a career built on higher education. Let's say you're a lawyer or a researcher or a senior architect.
Okay.
You might work long hours, you might have immense pressure, but you usually have control over how you do that work.
Right. I can decide to take a break at 2 p.m. if I need to. I can decide to tackle a project from a different angle.
Yeah.
I have options.
Exactly. You have decision latitude. Now, compare that to someone with less education who might be working in, say, the service industry or a manual labor role. They often suffer from what's called low decision latitude. They have high responsibility. They have to show up on time, perform perfectly. The consequences of a mistake are high.
They have almost zero power to change their environment, their schedule, or the pace of their work.
Precisely. So it's that combination.
High demand, low control.
That specific combination, high demand, low control, is toxic. It does something very specific and very damaging to the body over time.
Okay, this is where I want to get into the weeds. We all know stress is bad, but how does low decision latitude actually kill you? It can't just be that you're grumpy all the time.
No, it's physiological. It's about a concept called allostatic load. Think of your body like a car engine. In a high-control life, like our architect, you have predictable stress. You have deadline. You rev the engine, you handle the crisis, and then you park the car. The engine cools down.
You recover.
You recover. But in a low-control life, where you don't know your schedule for next week, or you're worried about a manager yelling at you for something you can't fix, that engine is constantly redlining. You're sitting at a stoplight, but your foot is on the gas. That floods your system with cortisol.
Right, the stress hormone. We hear about cortisol all the time.
We do, but we often misunderstand it. In short bursts, cortisol is great. It saves your life. But when it's chronic, when that engine is redlining for 20 years, cortisol stops acting like an anti-inflammatory and actually starts causing inflammation.
Right.
It damages your arterial walls, it messes with insulin regulation, it literally rusts the pipes from the inside out.
So education sorts people into jobs where they might be stressed, but they aren't. Rusting.
That's a great way to put it. Education buys you entry into the predictable stress environment. You have the tools to navigate the complexity. You're not drowning in it, you're swimming in it. And that feeling of, I can handle this, is what keeps the cortisol in check.
That makes so much sense. It's not just about what happens to you. It's about your agency in dealing with it. But the notes here mention another layer to this. It's not just the job you get, it's the brain you build. The outline calls it health literacy.
Yes. This is the second huge pillar. The phrase from the source that really stood out to me was that education gives structure to the mind.
Structure to the mind. I mean, it sounds poetic, but what does it mean in a doctor's office? Because I know plenty of really smart people who are terrible patients.
Sure, of course. But statistically, think about what happens when you get a scary diagnosis. The doctor comes in, uses a bunch of Latin words, hands you a pamphlet, and outlines a really complex treatment plan.
It's a maze. It's terrifying.
It is. Now, health literacy is the ability to interpret that information, to ask the right clarifying questions, and to navigate the bureaucracy of the healthcare system. And the research shows that education acts as a training ground for this. If you've spent years analyzing texts, writing papers, breaking down complex arguments in college, you apply those same skills to your health.
So instead of just nodding and leaving, the educated patient is more likely to say, wait, hang on. Explain the side effects of option A versus option B again.
Exactly. They advocate for themselves. They treat the doctor as a consultant, not a dictator. But it goes even deeper than that. It affects the thousands of micro decisions you make every day. The data consistently shows that educated individuals have lower smoking rates, better diets, better sleep patterns.
I have to play devil's advocate here again.
Yes.
Because this sounds a little bit like we're saying educated people are just better, like they have more willpower or they're morally superior.
I'm really glad you asked that.
Oh, I went to college, so I have the willpower to eat a salad. Is that really what's happening?
No, and it is crucial to debunk that idea. The source material is very clear. This is not about moral superiority. It's not that educated people are better people. It's that they have been trained systematically in the mechanism of delayed gratification.
The famous marshmallow test.
In a way, yes. Think about what a degree actually is. It is a 4-year or 8-year exercise in long-term planning. You study today, you write a paper next week, you pay tuition for years, all for a reward that is way off in the future.
You're physically rewiring your brain to value the future over the present.
It's cognitive training. The source calls it the psychology of possibility. If you spend your formative years training your brain to think strategically about the future, that bleeds into everything.
Okay.
You don't choose the salad because you're a good person. You choose the salad because your brain is automatically running a simulation of the next 20 years and calculating the return on that investment.
That is fascinating. It's like your brain becomes a strategy machine and your body just benefits from the side effects.
Precisely. When the mind becomes strategic, the body follows.
I think we need to ground this. We've been talking about structures and gradients,
Yeah.
which can get a bit abstract. The source material had this composite case study, A Tale of Two Lives, that I found really heartbreaking, but also super effective.
Yes. This narrative is essential to understanding the reality behind the data. Let's imagine two boys born on the same street, same year. One stops his formal education at high school. Let's call him Joe. The other, we'll call Dr. Ahmed, continues on to get a PhD.
Okay, so fast forward. They're both 50 years old. They wake up on a Tuesday morning. What does that morning look like for each of them?
Let's start with Joe. Joe wakes up, but he's exhausted. He's working a swing shift, maybe security or logistics, so his sleep cycle is totally broken because his shift changes every 2 weeks. And he feels a tightness in his chest, a little pain,
Okay, a warning sign.
a clear warning sign. But Joe immediately runs a mental calculation. He has that low decision latitude we talked about. If he calls in sick, he might lose the shift's pay. If he loses that pay, he can't make rent this month. If he goes to the doctor, the copay is $50 he just doesn't have.
What does he do?
He suppresses it. He ignores the check engine light because he can't afford the mechanic. He pushes through, grabs a fast food breakfast because it's cheap and calorie dense, and rushes to a job where he has zero control over his environment. He's operating in a state of high threat reactivity.
Okay, now, Dr. Ahmed, same morning, he wakes up, and maybe he feels the same chest pain. Biology is biology, right?
Right. But his environment is radically different. He feels the pain. He calls his office and says, I'm going to be late. I need to check something out. No one fires him. He doesn't lose any pay. He probably has a friend from medical school he can text for quick advice.
He has great insurance.
Great insurance. He goes to the doctor immediately. He catches it early. He gets a treatment plan, and he understands the plan. And critically, he has the paid time off he needs to actually recover.
At age 50, these two men might have similar genetics, but their structural realities are they're different worlds.
That's it. One environment acted as a buffer against the stress. The other amplified it until it became toxic.
It really highlights that health isn't just about personal responsibility. We love to tell people, go for a run, eat better.
Right.
But we totally ignore the structural reality of, can you even afford the time to figure out what's wrong with you?
That's the crux of it. Inequality gets under the skin. It's not just about having a smaller TV. It's about having higher blood pressure, higher inflammatory markers. It's about having shorter telomeres, the little caps on your DNA that literally measure aging.
That phrase, inequality gets under the skin, is it's haunting.
It should be. The source material talks about the silent killers in communities with lower educational attainment. And it goes beyond just the job. It's the uncertainty, the constant instability of income, relying on less safe transportation. All of this creates that chronic inflammation we talked about earlier.
So we're looking at a situation where a lack of education and the social position it traps you in is physically toxic.
Yeah.
Over 30 or 40 years, it accelerates aging. It raises the risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, stroke.
Yes. And the source is very emphatic about this. These outcomes are not just bad luck. They are the biological consequences of social positioning.
Wow, this is heavy stuff. And if we ended the episode right here, it would be incredibly depressing, especially for anyone listening who didn't go to grad school. It sounds like destiny. Like, oh, I didn't get the diploma, so I guess I'll die young.
But that is not the message. And this is where the research pivots to something really empowering. We have to talk about a silver lining here.
Okay, good. Please, give us the good news.
Yeah.
Is it too late for the listener who's 40 or 50 and doesn't have a PhD?
No. Absolutely not. The source material contains what they call the Blink Beast life lesson. And the key finding is that longevity is not fixed by a piece of paper you got when you were 22. It is shaped by the mindset of the learner.
The mindset. So, we're talking about lifelong learning.
We are. The research suggests that the cognitive benefits, that structure of the mind, the neural connections, the agency, all of that can be built at any age. The source explicitly says, people who stay curious stay alive inside.
I like that.
And conversely, people who stop learning age faster.
That is profound. So reading a difficult book, learning a new language, figuring out how to fix your own car, these aren't just hobbies.
They're health interventions. Think about it. Every time you learn something complex, you are building what's called cognitive reserve. You're keeping your brain plastic. You're practicing that psychology of possibility.
You're reclaiming that agency.
Exactly. When you learn a new skill, let's say you take a free online course on nutrition or you learn how to invest your money, you are artificially creating that PhD advantage for yourself.
You're moving yourself from a position of, I don't know, I have no control, to, I understand this. I can handle this.
You are turning down the cortisol. You are quieting the engine.
So the source describes education as one of the strongest medicines available. And the prescription isn't necessarily go into debt for a university degree. The prescription is just never stop being a student.
Never stop being a student. Build that fortress around your mind, whether it's learning to cook a new healthy cuisine, understanding the history of your city, or mastering a new software. It all contributes to that sense of control and autonomy.
I love that. It takes the power back. You don't need the institution to get the benefit. You just need the curiosity.
You are the architect of your own environment.
So let's bring this all home. We've covered a massive amount of ground today. We started with the shocking fact that education beats almost every other factor for life expectancy.
We dug into the why status syndrome, the idea that autonomy and control are biological necessities, not just, workplace perks. We talked about allostatic load and how a life of low control literally rusts the body with stress.
Then we looked at the tale of two lives, contrasting Joe and Dr. Ahmed. And we saw how these structural realities can determine whether chest pain becomes a checkup or a heart attack.
And finally, we found the escape hatch, lifelong learning. The idea that by staying curious, we can build our own resilience and reap those same biological rewards.
So it's not just about a diploma. It's about control, agency, and curiosity.
That's it. That's the formula.
So here's the final provocative thought for you, the listener. We always like to leave you with something to chew on, something to take into your week.
The source material ends with this core truth. Longevity is not destiny. It is daily decisions shaped by knowledge. So if your environment shapes your health more than your DNA does, I want you to ask yourself a hard question. What is one thing, just one thing, you can learn today that will help you build a better environment for your tomorrow? Not a vitamin to take, but a concept to master.
That's the challenge. Go learn something. Your life literally depends on it. Thanks for diving in with us.
Keep your brain active.
See you next time.